So here is the little more developed spread. And the point of a spread of research is to explore ideas. And on this one, I went a little more with images than words, right? But starting with the question of what is art, which I know is a vague and pretentious question, but it unifies us all. Like, what are we doing this for? What are we making art for? To me, here's some thoughts I came across. The idea that art is about exploring your inner and outer world, right? In order to connect with people, in order to see what's possible, right? And that comes about with time spent. When you spend time exploring ideas just for the sake of it, it leads to things, right? So we can look for influences in different cultures. Sometimes we're just focusing on, how have people done this in the past and around the world. Other times we're looking at just very specific techniques, like how do I mix paint in a certain way? How do I apply it? How do I use oil paint? Right? It's a very specific technique. Sometimes you're just thinking about purpose and the reason why. Why did Picasso make his art? Or why did Michelangelo paint the Sistine Chapel? There's a lot of ways to answer that, right? So when you study the role of art in our culture and history, that leads to ideas too. So by exploring these ideas and forming questions, right? We look within ourselves, we look outside in the world, and we see where it goes. So here's some of my, this is what we call my studies page, I guess, right? There's like a little bit of idea development, now study page. As I was exploring ideas for the masks, right? I did some doodles, and then I already knew this, but I might have explored and found out if I went online to this event in art history where Pablo Picasso and George Braque were first exposed to African masks, and they realized, wow, there's a lot of ways people make art. I mean, this is a really different way to represent a face than we've done, throughout our art history in Europe, right? So they see these masks and then start painting in a really different way. And it leads to Cubism, which is the huge change in why people made art and what they're trying to show and portray. Okay? And separately, Mr. Yanowski already gave me the link to Saul Steinberg, an illustrator who made these paper bag masks, and they're kind of fun. And so I'm going to make some masks, develop ideas about what they could be, what could be on them, right? And as I'm working, I'm thinking about these ideas over here, and we see what happens. First step is to put some paint on the bag. If you have any wall paint, that's an acrylic kind of paint, and acrylic will dry like a plastic and seal up the surface so you can draw on it and paint on it with other paints. Just make sure anytime you use acrylic, like house paint is acrylic, and there's acrylic that we get from the classroom, you gotta rinse your brush really good afterwards. Don't let it dry up in the paint. Words on it. Might want to just cover it up with some wall paint. It doesn't even have to be all that even. I can miss some spots and use that in the final design. All right, quick tip. When I use a brush, I usually like just to put paint in this zone. Don't let it get up into this is called the ferrule, the metal part. Don't let it get up in there. It's harder to clean, and it doesn't help your brush control either. So I'm doing more than one, so I have options by the end. You gotta leave room for yourself when making a project to explore and, try things out that don't work too, right? Don't just try to do it in one shot. That's a big part of this first unit, is making some random thing like a mask. Just to have a topic, But then from there, the question is, how do you explore ideas. What is it going to be about? What kind of features are you going to put into it? So when we do this step of priming the surface, it gives us time to think. Even though thinking's overrated, you know? They say if you want to get good ideas, just act. Don't wait for motivation, right? Just do something. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing something. But your brain doesn't just turn off. Your ideas are starting to come already. Right, don't have to be too careful about this priming step. Making the ground, it's called. Short for background. And look at, of course, it turns a little gray. And I'm mixing in the brush. It'll be like a gray beard at the bottom. I wonder who that'll be. I've mixed white and black to make kind of this gray, salty pepper type color scheme. It just gave me an idea, just to think out loud for a moment. That, okay, if I have this series of masks, I could make my family. I could make any other group of people, right? So I can make something like avatars of my whole family, you know. Anyway, at the risk of being weird, I'm just thinking out loud to help you guys understand that we just start doing something and get an idea. Use cold water when rinsing and really bend the brush, get the paint out. So in the early 20th century, Pablo Picasso and with his friend George Braque, were exposed to African masks and Japanese woodcuts, and a lot of artists started realizing that when they stretched and explored different ways people made art across the world, it gave them a lot of ideas. And by developing the ideas, they start stretching themselves as artists. And that's essentially what I'm asking for you guys in this project, is as you explore randomly online, see what comes together and see what you can come up with. And we're making masks just to have something to focus on, but also make some meaning out of it. So I found this really rewarding because my family all started making masks, and my kids and my son's girlfriend made one, and we just all had a kind of a great night making masks. And I think that kind of points to one reason we make art in the first place, is just to bring ourselves together, to get focused and see what's inside of ourselves and enjoy.